Welcome into the Invest Well Show. I'm your host, as always, Michael Wall. Listen, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I want to talk to you this show about something that I think is really important. The topic is, are you with the wrong financial advisor or maybe financial firm? You may be saying, Mike, why is that important? Gosh, they're all the same out there, aren't they? Well, the reality of it is they're not. And there's differences along the way that sometimes consumers just don't understand. And one of the things that I've had the unique opportunity to do, not only coaching over 120 advisors in the country, but also commentating for 6 years for national media, has given me a lens that, quite honestly, most have not had in relation to the financial space. And so consequently, one of the things that I wanted to do on this show was talk to you about why you may be with the wrong financial advisor. But before we get to that, I want to kind of start out and explain some of the differences advisor to advisor to advisor, because I think at surface level, a lot of consumers look at it from the reality that everybody's kind of the same. And that's just not the truth at all. In fact, what you have when you take a look at advisors, oftentimes, you can have firms where the advisor operates as a broker. So they are operating as a broker, selling and buying things on your behalf. And they are working and utilizing a broker-dealer in order to do that. In other words, they get paid when they make that transaction. And then you have advisors that are operating as a fiduciary, meaning that they typically will make money by charging a fee on the assets that they are managing. And then they select investment ideas. They don't get paid directly when they buy and sell investments, but they charge a fee on your assets. And then you have a blend sometimes where you might have someone that is a fiduciary and has the ability to be a broker. And then also you have insurance agents that are out there selling, we'll call it investment tools. Really, they're products. They're not investments per se, by definition of the SEC. And those are insurance-based contracts. Now, sometimes you have folks that you're working with that can have the ability to wear multiple hats. And I think that's really important when you take a look at that. But I think what's even more important is what type of investment solutions and structures does the advisor or firm that you're working with offer, and do those investment structures align with where you are on your wealth scale or wealth journey, I'll call it. Think of it like this, and I often use this as an analogy because I think it's pretty simple. But if you were going to high school and you had a teacher that was teaching you math in school, you wouldn't assume that same teacher would be the one all the way later on years in college that's teaching you during your PhD classes, right? It'd be a different teacher, a different professor, because they are all schooled in different things. And similarly with financial situations and people, you need to make sure that the structures that are being offered through the advisor and the firm that you're working with are actually tailored and appropriate for your situation. That's one of the reasons that you often see some advisors will work exclusively, for the most part, with families or clients that have a certain level of wealth. Now, when you take a look at your situation, if you've only ever worked with a broker or a financial advisor that works for a broker-dealer or even works for an investment advisory company, but for the most part, they've pretty much stayed in the lane of working with families that aren't really that wealthy, it's not a problem. It's not a bad thing. They're just in a place where they do not have certain levels of expertise sometimes that are needed for families that have greater levels of wealth. I think about this in my career. As I started out years ago from a smaller town in Pennsylvania, when I, being in the financial space, really working with families that were great families, but just did not have the same level of wealth as families that I connected with years later in my career as I'd made transition down to the Palm Beach area. And obviously what's happened is when you meet families and work with families with greater wealth, they're in a place where they have different needs. They have different requirements. They have different desires. They have different opportunities just because of flat out their wealth level. And so I want you to think about this. You might have been in a situation where you've selected your advisor based on a friend or a family member or just someone that you knew well growing up over the years. And so you've taken your advice from that person. Well, unfortunately, like all industries, there are well-intended people giving advice and ideas to folks that unfortunately may not be appropriate or may not be something that they're specifically aware of. Now, that doesn't mean they're a bad person. That doesn't mean that they didn't have purity in their heart to try and add value. It just means they have limited knowledge on certain ideas and topics. Let me give you an example. A lot of folks out there, when we look at the political landscape, they talk about the presidency or Congress or Senate, and they make comments as to what they should do. Well, I think they should do this, or I think they should do that. The reality of it is, most folks in America literally have no day-to-day idea of what those jobs actually look like, what is actually required, the stresses and pressures, and the decisions that need to be made daily on those situations look like. The way they could find out is by engaging in that arena and being part of that process by having that job title. In relation to the financial situation, what happens a lot of times, if brokers or financial advisors are primarily only working with families that have less amounts of money, what does that look like? Maybe $1 to $2 million and under. And that's traditionally been their career. That doesn't mean they don't have clients that have multi-millions of dollars. But if generally they've been working with families that have less amounts of money, they're going to be somewhat limited with the resources and tools potentially needed and solutions offered to families with significant wealth. Now, again, this is not a bad thing because there's different strokes for different folks. And the beautiful thing about the business world is you can operate it a variety of different ways. But when you take a look at where you are in life, this show specifically being referenced and targeted to those of you out there that have worked hard for years. You've built some significant wealth because you built maybe a company or you were part of a great company. And now you're in a place where you have lots of wealth that you've obtained. Or maybe you're getting ready to liquidate a company that you have developed. And you're now asking yourself the question, where can I go and who can I trust to help give me the guidance I need to not only help me manage my wealth well, but also maybe liquidate your company or save money in taxes. And I want to challenge you to think about, just because you may have relationships in the financial industry over the years doesn't necessarily mean those folks are people or professionals that can bring the kind of guidance to you that you really need to maximize your situation. So as you look at your life and you look at your situation, I want to challenge you to think about who you're working with and are they appropriate for your situation. A couple ways that you can go about that is by thinking through, number one, what type of firm is this? Is it completely independent? Do they have access to a plethora of investment ideas and opportunities? Is there anything unique about how this firm is set up? Do they use a custodian in any type of capacity? As an example, one of the companies that I own, U.S. Private Wealth, uses Charles Schwab institutionally as a custodian, even for alternative investments, which really can give clients a lot of great value and peace of mind knowing that there's a custodian confirming that this investment structure and stack is legitimate and registered. That's something that you need to be asking. What type of offering and what do they use as a custodian and what does that look like? The second thing that you need to really kind of look at, I believe, is what are their qualifications or what is their track record of success around tax mitigation, tax planning, and tax savings. A big part of wealthy investors is not just growing their wealth and protecting it, but also reducing taxes. And when you're getting into a place where you have millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars or more, you need advanced strategy to really help come alongside your specific situation. And thirdly, what I would say is, what does their client structure look like? In other words, are they out trying to just work with anybody and their brother, or are they a little bit more exclusive and boutique? I tend to find that a referral-based type firm is one, in a lot of ways, that connects well with many families. Why? Well, because the referrals are being offered and the results are given from the client that's offering it. And now you know, hey, this is a client that's had some real-world experience with this firm. It can really help aid, a lot of times, your confidence in making that decision. I really do want to challenge you, though, that you may have someone in the financial arena or financial industry that just may not be the right advisor helping you in this stage of life. That doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means that the tools that you need now might be different than the financial resources and tools that you needed 10, 15, 20 years ago? This is an important question, and it's an important thought. You literally only have one opportunity to live your life. And if you get things wrong through the wrong planning, it really can be catastrophic. So I want to encourage you in the fact that you really look at your investment structure through this lens. And it's very simple. The lens is this: business is business and friends are friends. In my opinion, it's a great idea to separate friendly and family relationships from business and ensure that you're in a place where you can make decisions from a business mindset. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say you have a $100 million portfolio or a $5 million portfolio or a $300 million portfolio or a $20 million portfolio. In that scenario, you're looking at your portfolio as though it is a company. And now the goal of that company is to protect it, grow it, reduce taxes on it, and really create the kind of legacy planning around it necessary. If you look at that portfolio as a company, as a business, then that means you will wear the hat as a CEO, Chief Executive Officer. What that means is when you look to find someone to help you, you will make more rational decisions based on the business sense instead of the emotional sense. And that's so important when you've developed and grown a significant amount of wealth in your life. Listen, I got to tell you, this is an important conversation that many families are feeling as they're thinking in life, gosh, do I really have the right person for me? And I want to challenge you to explore that and think about that through the business lens of, am I making a good business decision with how my wealth or your company is currently being invested? So important. Listen, if you have questions, there's a lot of additional resources out there through our podcast, The Invest Well Show, where we've talked about a variety of different things in the past. The sponsors of this show, Wall Private Wealth, has done a great job of exclusively working with private higher-end families. So if you've got questions, you can reach out to them. Info will be on the screen. My challenge really is that you take the time to find the right firm for you. Not every firm is right for every client and family. So make sure you take the time, do the diligence, do the research, and really evaluate what are your needs, what are your desires, what do you want, but then also where is your wealth structure now? Do you have a lot of wealth? And if you do, you might need to change who is helping you with your financial situation. Last thing I'll say, bigger is not always better. Sometimes the concept over the years is this big, massive firm is the solution. I got to tell you, that is not always the case. That's been my experience over the years of being in the industry. So caution yourself to really get into the nuts and bolts. You've worked hard for what you have. Make some good decisions and maybe different and even better decisions potentially with where you are financially and your future. Listen, be blessed. Talk to you next time.